I want to first of all thank everybody that showed up today, and I really want to give a special thanks to the guys that are going to be presenting, our speakers. They took the time and work to get this set up. So there's donuts and coffee. We're going to have a break in between. It's going to be about 10-15 minute break. And we know that a fed air crew is a happy air crew. So definitely dive into the donuts. We have napkins, plates, all that good stuff, and hand sanitizer for make sure that you guys have clean hands before you touch the donuts, right? So one of the biggest reasons why we're here is because we do not share information like we normally should. We always, I feel like we put on our blinders for the MWSs. I feel sometimes as far as, I know in the C5 community, I definitely see that all the time, that maybe the KC10s or the C17s don't have, or even now our AE counterparts might not have the solution for us. But in all reality, some of the problems that we have, even if it comes in a different form, the base of the problem is still the same. So that's why we're here, is to try to help and share some of the solutions and resolving these problems. So one of the biggest things that I want you guys to take away from today is starting to open up communications between the instructor community and start sharing information, and at the end, hopefully build relationship between ourselves to make a better product within the instructor court. So I hope you guys like this format. I hope you guys enjoy the speakers that are coming up, and have an open mind. We're gonna have about 10-15 minutes Q&A session after every speaker. So please hold your questions at the end until they're done. And I'm gonna pass you on to Sergeant Rupp. Oh.
Morning, everyone. I'm Staff Sergeant Zachary Ruff. I work over at the KC-10 Formal Training Unit as one of our boom operator instructors. For those of you who don't know, the KC-10 Formal Training Unit is out here at Travis. So we push pilots, engineers, and boom operators through our pipeline. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information about that today. We're going to go ahead and get the slide for me. Quick overview of everything that we're going to be covering. We're going to be going over our mission, our training timelines, our curriculum, and how we handle student priority and some of the milestones that they have throughout our training program. So our mission, to put it blatantly, the KC-10 Formal Training Unit objective is to produce basic qualified KC-10 crew members. My job as instructor boom operator is to push through boom operators and instructors through our instructor course. We do that in a couple of ways, so hit the slide for me. We handle it through a training timeline. We have a phase 1A and 1B that we handle through our training. It's 120-day total time beginning on the first day of contractor training, which is phase 1A. That leads us into the next bullet. So phase 1A is contractor-led training made up of classroom instruction and simulated refueling. During this phase of training, they go through a number of boom operator trainer simulators, which simulates air refueling and allows them to work on some of their pre-flight portions, like their ARO inspections, their prep for contacts, their post-ARs, handling both emergencies and abnormals in and out, or in the ARO station while they're conducting refueling. So that way, when they get to phase 1B, which is the flying phase of training that begins after the completion of phase 1A, they have a little bit of an understanding of what they're going to be doing in the back of the jet, so they're not just going in blindly. You always do sims first, so that way they have that basic level of understanding before they get in and we go through the actual flying phase. So our curriculum is basically compiled into this workbook that we have, the boom operator initial qual. So this is for the initial qual. We have a separate one for our instructors that we push through, which Sergeant Eagle will be talking about following my presentation. Go ahead and slide for me. These are two of our biggest portions, so that we'll talk about today. We have different items that need to be signed off at a proficient level. We'll talk about day contacts really quick. As you can see, it's got its purpose laid out for it. Its purpose is it's to build student proficiency with day contacts. So we do that in a couple of different ways. We have a number of training items that we have to go through in the classroom first that are based out of our Vol 3 or Dash 1 and a couple of different sections that give them the information about refueling before they actually go do it. And they have more of an understanding into it. And then you can see the P at on the right side of that day contacts. That means for knowledge, but they have to demonstrate it proficient, or they can move on to another portion of training. And it even says in the back half of that, day contact proficiency radio sign contacts, the first step of their training before they move farther on to the night portion. And they have to complete that before moving on. Go ahead and hit the slide for me. So that leads us into how we handle student priority and some of their milestones. So their biggest milestones are moving from day contacts to night contacts. And that's kind of where we base our priority off. So I talked earlier about the 120-day completion time, starting from the first day of contractor-led training. So that's kind of how we prioritize them through that phase of training. But if we have one student who tends to excel a little bit faster on the days, even if their grad date is later on, we're not going to hold them back just to appease for the student who got there first. There's no point in holding somebody back if one of them is not excelling at a faster pace. So we will sign that newer student, if you will, off on nights or on days to move them on the nights just to progress them on training, so we're not creating a backlog in that aspect. But overall, that phase 1B completion date is really what determines the priority later on in training, because ultimately we want to get them graduated on time. We don't want anybody to like kind of bottleneck it in that regards, if that makes sense. That was a pretty brief overview. There's probably some questions on it, but just to recap what we talked about, our mission for anybody in this room who's gone through a formal training unit is to produce qualified crew members. That should be pretty self-explanatory. The training timeline is that 120-day timeline, starting from contractor training and then ending on their check ride out of phase 1B. Talked about the curriculum a little bit and how we handle it. We have items that we read off or that we go over in the classroom, and then they have to demonstrate proficient ability before that we can send them into their check rides. Then we talked about student priority and milestones at the end of it, how we handle that in a very brief sense, not to get into like the thick of things, because I don't think we need to really talk too much more about that. And that's pretty much it is in the review. I'll open up to any questions you guys have at the moment. So go ahead, floor is you guys. Go ahead, sir. Lately, it's been finishing a lot sooner. We push out typically 10 sorties a week just at the FTU with a student on almost every single flight. So they've been finishing upwards of like 2 to 3 weeks early before that 120-day completion time, just because of the pace that we've been operating at. So currently we have 4 instructors in a chief boom slot. We just lost one of our instructors because they promoted out of their slot. So we're operating at 4 instructors in a chief boom to about 5 students that we have currently right now. So we don't necessarily have dedicated instructors to the student, but we have that option if we need it. But a couple months ago, when we were getting that first backlog because of the COVID backup from their tech school, we had about 8 to 9 students with our 5 instructors in a chief boom. I would say 5 to 10 is pretty normal in that rate. It ebbs and flows just based off fiscal year and time frame. You know, towards the end of the fiscal year, typically we have less students, and then they figure out, okay, how many boom operators do we need to fill? And then closer to, I would say after the 1st of January is where we get a bigger backup.
My question for the milestones is that when you guys are that detailed on each milestone, so they can't step onto the jet until they complete that certain portion. Is that, are you guys running it, or do you guys still take them on the trip, try to see if they can get signed up?
Not necessarily. So we can handle a lot of it in the classroom, but a lot of it we can talk about on the jet. So following their pre-flight portion of training, because the pre-flight, they really only get to do that if we're going out to fly. We can do like dry runs of it and just head out to static aircraft and do the pre-flight on that. But for those kind of items like pre-flight, we typically do that when we're going to fly. So we don't necessarily worry about getting it signed off in the classroom before we go to step, because a lot of it can be talked about in the moment when they're doing the contacts and relating it to that event before and after they complete that, I guess, milestone of training on that day.
But you guys do have items that they have to get signed up.
So there's the standard before you fly, which is like your LO 0, 1, 4, 5, and 6. So like those type of training items, which are outside agencies. But for us, the only item that we need prior to their first flight would be their field trip, and we conduct that in the first week of training.
How long is 2B?
It's all depicted off when their completion date of 1A is. So that I couldn't get that information to you right now. Yeah, so there you go.
You said that you're producing basic mission qualified guys. So what does it take to get them like CMR when they get
Yes, sir. So we have UB, which is basically like unqualified boom, FB, and MB. When they graduate our phase 1 of training, they become an FB, so they can fly only locals on their own. Once they complete phase 2 of training, which is run by the squadrons, then they'll get their mission qual, and then that's when they can go out on the road by themselves. But we at the FTU don't handle that phase 2 portion. That's conducted through the squadrons.
Are they gonna move?
They are not.
Yeah.
A lot longer, and that comes from a backlog of cargo. Casey tank community faced a big shortage for a while, so as students get pushed through us on a regular basis because we operate on locals, so it doesn't take us even to go on the road and get cargo loads and stuff like that. There's a big backup, and then we also have the CLT, which is another sim for cargo loading that we use. So they go through the CLT course, and then they start phase 2B of training, which is that 120-day course where they actually go on the road and try to attain that mission qual status.
So boom, think about so this why 240
Yes, sir.
You guys, you said you pushed out 1040 a week. Is that those are dedicated FTU lines only? And then when they reach their phase 2, those phase 2 ever reach back into the FTU and fly like FTU lines?
So-
they stay with the operation?
So they seat fill for us, so they'll help fill any lines that we don't necessarily need for a student, and they'll fly on their own. So it's no instruction from us at phase 1. But I guess in that sense, they don't really receive any training. They just basically fill any locals that are left open after we fill them with our training lines. And if you've ever flown against a QuestJet, that would be us over at the FTU that are those dedicated locals. All right, if nobody else has any questions, I'll turn it over to Sergeant Eagles. He'll be able to talk more about some of our instructor course, how we handle student feedback, and stuff like that.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
How are we doing?
Great.
I'll be talking, kind of piggybacking off a lot of what Sergeant Buff said, more focused on the instructor upgrade portion. And then after that, we'll finish up with the POI. So this is just a breakdown of kind of what it takes to become an instructor and then continue on after becoming an instructor. So becoming an instructor, you're going to be selected from your peers, your leadership to promote up to that instructor level. That's you've hit so many hours, you've hit 1,500, or if you're a prior instructor, even less, 750, depending on your total flight hours. I think it's 2,000 for cross trainings. But anyways, once you're selected from your leadership, you'll go ahead and accomplish a pre-course workbook to become an instructor. That's derived from flight safety. Flight safety makes, Pinnacle Solutions actually make all of our paper pubs for flight safety, upgrade training, initial qual training, all the stuff we have in our good reader. But basically, you're going to go from MB to an IB. MB is where Sergeant Buff left off. IB is where you're going to after that. And starts that pre-course workbook is just getting into the weeds on a lot of your specifically -1, your systems knowledge, kind of brushing up on some of that stuff you may have forgotten during initial qual training. And then that leads you into flight safety. Flight safety, if you're a brand new instructor, you're going to do a 3-day CRM class with your other crew positions, kind of gain some knowledge from them, as well as some briefing techniques, minor briefing techniques. And if you're a prior instructor, you kind of bypass that. You do a 1-day CRM sim or CRM class with any other instructor upgrades over there. Next slide. So once you've completed flight safety, then you'll go over to the FTU, and that's where we came. And then you'll start your 90 days. So it's a 90-day program for instructor upgrades over at the FTU. And you're primarily going to be focused on doing your milestones, like Sergeant Ruff said. But for instructors, we have a little bit flexes a little bit differently. You're going to accomplish a day sortie. You're going to accomplish a night sortie. You're going to accomplish some briefing. You're going to learn some briefing techniques, guidelines that we implement, kind of change your mindset from a mission qualified guide how to train your qualified guys. Your syllabus basically is got 34 main training tasks, and it's broken down into 118 subtasks. So it's quite a bit within your syllabus that you're going to get during your 90 days. It includes 5 briefings that you've got to give to either students or other instructors, just to kind of get you up in front of people and kind of get comfortable. You're also going to conduct one of those field trips at Sergeant Offset. So we have a field trip binder. You kind of walk through it. It's also derived from the syllabus. So there's, I don't know, about 20 subtasks just under aircraft field trips. It's about a 3-hour trip out to the aircraft with either brand new guys, or if you don't have any students, which is not going to happen anytime soon, you'll take other instructors out there and kind of walk them through the jet from front to back in very specific detail. So on a day-to-day, when you're flying the mission as an instructor, with your instructor upgrade, you're going to be teaching them proper instructional positioning techniques, kind of what works best, where to stand in the jet. They're learning a little bit about of that in the ARO, because you're going to be you have an instructor boom seat, you have a primary seat, and then you have an observer seat in the ARO. So that's kind of hammered out in flight safety. But once you get out to the jet, there's a lot more jet in the ARO. So teaching those instructors where to stand, how to teach the jet is kind of what we do for the instructor. Student adaptability, that's a big one that I like to push because every student's different. Different people react different ways. Some people like, to be firmly told how to do things, and they gain that knowledge better that way. But the majority of people like to just be even keel. That information passed on is received better than that. And then last stop, this was kind of before this crosstalk. We had some offline conversations about paper versus digital. We're transitioning, right? Where we have been transitioning to G10s and Goodreader and like publications on our iPad or whatever device you have. So we've kind of gone away in the last year at the FTU. We don't have any paper folders. We all conduct using Goodreader and the iPad. So if you want to slide, I know these are kind of hard to see, but these slides I can make available to anybody, or I can do additional training at a later time on this stuff. But we basically take, within Goodreader, we take each individual's training guide and we modify it. As you can see here, you just, this is similar to Sergeant Ruff's slide, where it shows you a task, a main task, and then you've got your subtasks beneath it. So to annotate it, you just hold down, you hit the ABC button. There's actually a couple of different ways to do this. This is the way I prefer to do it, just because you could add your signature, but kind of sloppy and I'm nitpicky with that kind of stuff. So next slide. Create annotated copy. If you don't do this, then when you go to recycle, and you go to update your posts, it's going to wipe all this information out. So what we're doing here is we're going to set up a remote training guide and put it in a different place so it doesn't get touched except by the instructors for that specific student or instructor upgrade student. Next slide. Just enter your name. Next slide. And then put it into the instructor block, the date that it was completed. And that's only once every subtask has been completed. Next slide. Once you have modified an individual student or upgrade student's training guide, you go to the top, select the top and rename. Next slide. And then that's gonna create their own folder, their own upgrade training folder. And then next slide, you're gonna move that to the front of the iPad. So at the beginning of the iPad, under My Documents, you've got probably EPUBs or whatever is the normal one everybody has. But I like to create an additional folder outside of EPUBs, so it's completely separate. And that's going to be where I put my students' training guide, and then every instructor knows they can pick up anybody's iPad and see where they're at training at any given time, because that instructor has gone into that specific person's iPad and signed off on day contacts or night contacts or whatever. So that way, if you aren't able to read their tappers, which you should read their tappers before each flight, but it's not always, possible due to whatever. And here's an example. So F2 is our, or EPUBs or whatever it normally is, and then just create one folder. So that's pretty much it for tracking individual student progress or instructor progress as they go along. End of course questionnaire. Now this is something that everybody does maybe, or if not, then here's how we do it over at the FCU. At the end of, once they've completed their check ride, then we give them an end of course questionnaire, and it kind of breaks down how they receive training with their time over at the FCU, what we can do different, or what they liked, so we can emphasize that later for other students. Just basically kind of building a long list of do's and don'ts for the FCU. It has other basic information to be saved into their individual file on the admin side, but very, very helpful. And then last, I wanted to talk about the instructor becoming an instructor of instructors. So POI, this is Principles of Instruction course that's taught locally here. Back when I took it, it was taught at McGuire, and then it kind of transitioned over to Travis. But it's a 2-week locally drive course. It kind of refocuses you. It's not quite a big course. A big is 4 to 6 weeks, depending on where you go. And that's more in depth. A lot more briefings are given there. A lot more of the behind the scenes stuff. Go back. The POI course is more getting you ready. You can job specific everything, so you can get ready for teaching your guys. For us at FD, you can get ready to teach those guys by prepping whatever the briefing may be. If it's a warp and drogue briefing, you can practice it here. But this is kind of just leading those instructors out to the FTU. And then once they're out at the FTU at the level that Sergeant Ruff and myself are at, then there's other levels after that, but this is where we'll leave off today. So in summary, we just talked about what it takes to make an instructor, and this goes for most other career fields. But any questions? Yes. It saves on their iPad as well. Correct. Because you're updating the EPUBs folder itself for the 60 OG, that's how it's updated. That's how everybody's EPUBs are updated. But if you create a subfolder, actually it's not even a subfolder, it's a main folder as well. That's a private folder, then you can put any documents you want. Also, somewhere else. It's now, mind you, if you put other pubs into there, it's upon you. So I would obviously put for reference only, so you don't get yourself in trouble. But it's upon you to maintain those pubs staying up to date. If that answers the question.
Yeah, that's really good. Are you guys then? Is this just checking off the events
We are in GTIMS. However, we have on loan attached guys that help us out at the FU, so they may not, for whatever reason, have be able to log into GTIMS. But so if they didn't, then the student, whoever they're teaching that day, they can look at their iPad and say, "Oh, we're right here." They can just pick up where the last person has that. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, so are you guys remotely sharing that, like all the instructors, all the students?
Each folder will have their own individual. So if the instructor is flying with Airman Flyer that day, he takes his iPad from him, looks on his iPad, because it's saved only on his iPad. It's not populated to any other iPad.
Lisa Tender, that Pinnacle solution, they did not update their contract. They're using GMS, so that's why there is a gap. When you go to SIM, they're not, that stuff has to come on paper, you know, they decide on.
We get an email. It may be smart to include that PDF document that they send to their final review at the FTU. That way we can keep that information in GTIMS, kind of around that. Yeah.
So show I know, like,
Do you have questions?
no, I just, so for the good readers, the only thing I was gonna say is that sometimes it's easier to have a paper pub on the road, right? So that's why we have, but I'm going to good readers first, saving the trees, right? And then number two, we actually have it in there and stuff. So that's the reason why we have, like for our airframe, it's just like a quick glance, like, okay, what are we gonna get you signed up? It's not that we don't read the keys or anything, but it's just that when we're on the road, we can't memorize everything. It's hard to access GTIMS on the road, right? But I heard it.
Yeah. About a year ago, we transitioned to this. It was hard because it's nice and easy to lean on that paper publicly. But everybody always has to have their iPad, right? So it's just an easy one-stop shop. Might as well use what we have.
I saw on Google Drive you said you had a primary instructor. Is
that something?
So, yeah, we try to dedicate a primary instructor, and then we're maxed at 4 instructors. We don't want to get a 5th instructor involved, just to kind of keep them focused. So that's in the talks of being removed from the Vol 1. It hasn't been removed yet, but it's a waiver that we have to put in every time, because we usually fly with 5 or more instructors for each student, just because it's near impossible to keep them at the 4 with, you know, everything going on. So,
but I go back to like the curriculum development.
Right.
But if I'm in the next, I always know it's a year, different sort of stuff more you like that.
And we're actually getting trend data from our end of course questionnaires saying that they appreciate seeing different sides of different instructors. More instructors, the better is what we're seeing. The last year at least that I've been.
To an extent.
Well, no. I mean, I haven't had any where they didn't say opposite, or where they said opposite.
Like back in the day, you didn't want to have the same thing.
No, yeah. You're so old. Is there any last questions? I think I saw one in the back.
So you guys
No, no. So strictly their government issued iPad. Yep, just an additional folder outside of the iPad.
So we talked about trying to do that
Right. So GTIMS is obviously what we lean on. GTIMS is what we lean on, but when you're out on the flight with a specific person, it's just easy. iPad.
You guys ever ran into students reading it or somebody saying, oh,
If they did, we could just. We haven't ran into that issue, but if we did, obviously for that specific flight, we would be out of it, and we would just have to probably contact the other instructors. Luckily, we work in a small shop of 5, 6 instructors, so we kind of have that standard instructional text message thread going, where you can just hit, hey, you know, Airman blah, where's he at? Yesterday. I didn't see anything in GPNs. There's nothing in the iPad. That would be our last. That's true. Yeah.
that's how I do on my tablet. I
That's-
type it up, I email it myself.
I do the same thing every flight. I do the tapper. I do the debrief on the bus, and then email it. Or I don't have my email on the iPad. That's a good one. But I just take that note, share it to my phone, email it. Yeah, we work around everybody. I'm sure has their own workaround. Like snap scan for your DTS voucher. Everybody's on something. Good.
I did have a question for the question here, stuff like you guys are establishing friends and stuff like that. And you guys have a feedback, just say you have a negative feedback about an instructor per se.
Yep.
And you see like 2 or 3 write-ups or maybe like or questionnaires. How do you guys actually?
So we pass, all the information gets passed to our chief boom out at FT. He doesn't count as an instructor against our Vol 1 instructor quota, but all of the questionnaires, I'll be honest with you, 60% of the time, people don't fill it out. They just put no comments, mark down the side. No. But the other 40%, we get really good feedback. And then every time somebody supports that feedback, it gets printed out and sent to our chief. And and he collaborates all that stuff quarterly, looks over it, sees what needs to be done, or if there's something that needs to be addressed soon, he obviously as soon as possible versus not finding out about it until happy later.
So it's kind of like a board where you take, like, say, you know, address it with that individual, it's just addressing yourself.
Last one.
So what was, you didn't say big, what?
POI.
POI. So during your instructor, you focus on like briefing skills, or do you focus?
Briefing, questioning techniques, just like Nick, that's not big to do 4 to 6 briefings to an hour. Okay, 4 briefings. So I did big at Lackland when I taught at COE. It was 6 weeks there, and it starts at impromptu 10-minute speech the first day, and then it goes all the way up to a 1 hour fully formulated PowerPoint presentation, dog and pony show. But POI is really kind of just to get your hands wet speaking in front of people, really. You can tailor it to your specific job because it's all people locally, so they kind of have an idea. You're usually in it with other flyers, boom operators, load masters, pilots, whatever. I don't think pilots go to people like that.
I guess my question, what kind of student do you, like,
There
you guys focus on? So you going through instructor school, you would teach another instructor, or would you teach a student?
If we had to, then that would be our primary focus, just so you get that experience of actuality.
And
But
are those students, when you go peer to peer, are those students playing a role, or is it just?
they're doing, so they are normally playing their role. So in an instructor upgrade environment, we would prefer them to have a student versus the instructor playing the student, which, I mean, sometimes you have to do that, but it's not what we would prefer. That means.
They are going through limited, so like he has to play through. You can't put it. 5 person in the.
Cool. All right, well, I think that leads us to our first break. And that's enjoy the donuts.
Say, 9:55. Like,
XP major. Logan. Hello, Dave Miller.
Hello. Hello. There we go. I just turn off audio. I keep it with audio. So instead of like turning it around, if like every time we can just reiterate the question, then that might be easier than like having to like constantly turn it back and forth.
Okay, that sounds fun.
Did you unmute it?
So just for the audience in here and stuff, we do got a couple of people on Zoom listening in. So when we ask a question, or when you guys do ask a question in the Q&A portion, just give us like about 5 seconds to turn the mic and then speak a little louder so they hear what the questions are. Since we got a couple of people on there. All right, let's go. It's 9:55. As before, I'm Tech Sergeant Aguilar. I work at the 60th OSS. I'm the C5 Wing Training Manager, and my current office is the OST. So one of the things that I want to reiterate is, again, trying to work on this communication that we have. I like the fact that you guys have starting to cross flow a little bit with the MWSs and talking to each other and seeing how you guys can help each other on certain processes for training. That's what we want. We want that conversation going, right? Sharing that information. We started up the communication, now we're sharing the information, and hopefully we can start building those relationships a little bit more stronger than what we have right now. Hopefully I'm gonna tie that all in on how these OSTs came about. The OST came about because the C5 training community wanted to find a better way to train our students, especially the younger ones, trying to get them in that crawl, walk feel. Bareboard training environment. So I was tasked about a year ago, back in November, to try to find some training opportunities. One of the cool things about this is that I started poking around in other training shops in the KC-10 community. I was like, hey, what do you guys do? For the most part, my understanding is Mr. Buchanan hooks you guys up with cargo on locals and stuff like that. But then I went to the FTU, asked them, and they're like, hey, you know what? There's a program, don't know the name of it, but the C-17 community probably knows about it. So went over there and started poking around there, and they're like, talk to our DO. The DO at the time, sorry, can't remember his name, but he's the one that hooked me up with the humanitarian airlift program. Hey, you guys can pick your car. There is no, like, hey, if you guys say you guys are going to do this, you guys are stuck doing this. They understand in that program, Mr. Bailey and Mr. Huttermeyer, that sometimes things happen, real world stuff happens. So if we have to go and do things that takes us out from doing the off-station trainer, we end up doing it. But just that alone, the communication, the trading information, and then me poking around within our community helped me out, which is now our base for these OSTs are these humanitarian airlifts. Cool part about this Go next slide. So the cool part about this is here's one of ours. It's a Nicaragua OST. They delivered 1 fire truck ladder, 2 ambulances, executed in 4 days, accomplished training for 6 AFSCs, and accomplished about, on average, 12% for loadmasters, FEs, pilots, FCCs, ATOCs, and Ravens. So everybody's getting some type of training out of this. For us, it kind of stabilized our training environment. We're able to spend 6 to 8 hours on the ground if we have to get better up and downloads with them. Not only that, but we're also helping out certain countries like Nicaragua, Guatemala, Honduras, and helping on the humanitarian side. It's not the only things that we do. There's pallets, there's other vehicles that we bring over. So we get to go on these, we get a requirement list every Thursdays right now. And on those requirement lists, we get to look into and see what benefits what benefits us for training. If we are heavy on vehicles, we're going to start looking for pallets. If we're heavy on pallets and they have some type of maybe helicopters that we haven't seen, we're going to try to do that. So it gives us that flexibility of choosing our cargo. Next. So currently, C5 has accomplished since of January 7 OSTs with the humanitarian program in SOCOM. Been working with mainly 8 support agencies and the CR. Right now, we're working to do 2 joint ground trainers. Actually, it takes off tomorrow with the contingent response wing, the Army, and the air mobility liaison officers is who we've been working with. We're going to be having 4 Chinooks and 4 ATLs to do uploads and downloads. We're actually going to do also a couple shuttle runs for that with passengers for them. And we're able to do some ground training from 9 o'clock to 15 to 1600 until we're done, until both sides get that training. So not only are we doing training and helping down in South America, but we're also doing training with the Army, because the Army also needs some of that training, right? They need to get that touches with our airframes. We're hoping that we coordinate 3 to 4 more before the end of the year. And again, I just want to reiterate, for us across the board, 12% is what we're getting for those 4-day OSTs for everybody accomplishing their training. What we like to have, having all 3 airframes utilizing Denton and AMLO for cargo trading. Again, it's not for you guys to say, hey, we're going to do this program, or we're going to do Den, or we're going to work with the AMLOs, and we have to do this. It's giving you guys the flexibility for having cargo. One of the things that we realized, and again, it's where I'm working at, I'm working with my KC-10 counterparts and my C-17 counterparts, and finding out that the KC-10 is also having the issues of finding cargo. And you guys might be a little bit more limited on MHEs in certain locations that can help you facilitate that training or that cargo, right? So what we want to do is try to coordinate cargo pickups and drop-offs within all 3 airframes. So say the KC-10 is like, hey, we see cargo for Haiti, and we know that the 17s can go into Haiti. Some cargo, all the C-17, and be like, hey guys, what we like to do is go pick up the cargo and say it's in Charleston, bring it back to Travis, that generates some cargo for us and some sorties. You guys up and grab the cargo and take it all the way down to Haiti, right? So that's a communication portion that we want to start having to give ourselves more room to build on these cargo missions. So that's going to expand our cargo training at Travis Air Force Base also. So when we do take it here, what we want to do is hold the cargo for 2 weeks. We already talked to the 60th APS, Mr. Buchanan. He's on board with it. We also talked to Mr. Bailey and Mr. Hudemeyer. As long as the cargo isn't something that's going to be sitting in the yard, like food that might expire, but maybe other stuff like clothes and medical supplies that don't need to be in storage, that we can bring here and hold. So what we would like to do is hold it for 2 weeks. 1 week, whatever airframe brings it in, holds it for that week. Like we talked about before, the KC-10s will have the chance to put them on your heavies, I guess, is what they said on Fridays. So now you have different cargo coming in instead of seeing the same old thing before. And trainers, and you guys actually have the tails for it. Now you have the option to be like, hey, I know we got 20 pallets over there. Can you bring them out here and do some up and down loads. Then the following week, which Mr. Buchanan would do for us, is swap that cargo to whatever other airframe is taking it the rest of the way. But that following week would be for that airframe to do some ground trainers and stuff like that. Again, the thing about it is having the flexibility increase here and OSTs are not forced to be like, hey, I got to do this. But if you guys come into an agreement between the squadrons saying, hey, I'm willing to pick it up, drop it off here, and I'm willing to take it for you all the way, then we got to, honor those agreements, right? And we can also, again, increase and decrease how many OSTs we're going to do, right? What we'll need, and I think we've established that, is to join OSTs. So maybe having a guy that says, hey, man, this is our dude. If you really want to try to coordinate an OST for us, with us, this is the guy you need to talk to, and be able to coordinate between those two guys. Again, constant communication, right? If something falls through and you guys cannot facilitate or work those OSTs, don't forget about the dude that you said you were going to do, help them out with, right? Give them a call and be like, hey, I can't do this, but maybe my counter 6 or the 312 is trying to get some. Constantly, again, the last piece, sharing information, right? We're constantly always sharing information. Again, I wouldn't be able to have this OST grow in the C5 community if I didn't go down and ask my fellow squadron, sister squadrons to give me that information. That's about it. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. So what's it called? Sergeant Patrick's going to talk about where that program is actually sitting at for us. And he'll give you a little bit more. But does anybody really have any questions on like how the? Oh, there you go.
Just started.
So
today,
just
so-
started yesterday.
Just started
Just started yesterday. So that's the crazy part. Again, this is why we're having this right here, right? Is the communication portion for the Instructor Crosstalk. Something I didn't know. Major Bailey made the introduction with I'm sorry, sir, Captain Lanther. Yeah. So we just started having that conversation just recently, and again, that's why we're here, is to share that information. Like, hey, we're doing this, and if you want to speak a little bit on top of what
Yeah,
you guys, what I found out yesterday.
We didn't know that you guys were hurting for OSTs like C5. So I literally told last month some big Florida they want us to move some Schnipps. Our 312 said no. I said okay. No, told them no. Right? Like there's stuff flows through reserve current officers all the time. And then the other problem is I wasn't sure. KC10 has special visions. Like Mike is not here. I don't know if you didn't get the invite or what, but so I think there's just been a lack of communication. Probably the biggest problem because there's plenty of OSTs. I have 2 dual requests for October to go to checkered flag, but the 10 due to the tail invisibility won't be able to take the cargo. So I can coordinate for C5, C17 take the cargo, and I'll just take the fighters or whoever else. So I think the avenues are already, some of them are already in place. There's just not, I think before you guys are probably just more busy with all the real world taskings that you didn't need the OSTs, and now the need's coming up more. So I think, yeah, as long as just keeping the communication open. I think the biggest problem is too, how have you guys worked out your OST approval chain? I know it's a lot slower is probably the biggest problem. We get some of these last minute, and you're still doing triple S's, right?
Yeah, we still got to do that. On the C5, we pretty much built up, and I already share the program with a couple of our KC10 counterparts and our C17. They pass it along to your instructor shops and stuff, or they said they were on how we do it, but we have a 90-day window. And what we've been doing is like setting these OSTs tentatively every month for out to 90 days. And everybody has a check box that they have to check. So the ADOs have a certain task that they got to complete. The tactics has their task that they got to complete. I have my own task that I got to complete, and all that good stuff. So everybody has a task that has hit, and there's agencies on there that they need to communicate with. So like this last one in Nicaragua, you guys had to have Ravens, right? So it's on there. Hey, call the Ravens, and the Ravens are jumping at the bit to actually do something. They're, my understanding, they're looking for it. So they're like, yeah, we can, as long as we have the men, we'll go and jump on these crews and stuff. So that's pretty cool. Any other questions?
First one that we did, I know we pushed that entire ESSS through in 4 days, I think, so that way we can meet a timeline. So
Okay.
it's say we can get back.
Well, the only impacts is just the difference is typically is one of the ones that will get in our way. So as long as you can check your SCG and say, hey, listen, we can get a dip for them, or talk to the embassy and they can fast track one. If
Well,
you
some
can-
of this is stateside stuff. last
Yeah,
year,
absolutely.
too, Exactly.
And the
Cookie
stateside
cutter,
one,
Nick
yes.
coming back or whatever too, you know, so
Yeah.
Alaska, there is the 21st, the 301st, or the 301st and 312th, I mean, sorry, they have in their, they have OST shop, it's embedded in their training shop, that's how they've had it for years. KC-10, because it's a bigger animal here at Travis, that's special missions at current ops, and then those information funnel from them, the way the reserve is set up, they plan these OSTs, find the users, do stuff, that's funneled to the directors, you got, Aaron, Tom, Sarah, and that's where the tails come from and stuff. So I think the missing piece is probably the active duty to reserve side. For that, when we're telling somebody no, or you're telling somebody no, and then obviously tails get shared up at the director level, right? They're coordinating schedule. We were talking about the other day, like shifting stuff. So yeah, I would say whoever you set up as your POCs in the squadrons, they can come to us and we'll tell them who those JD Willoughby and there's a couple in the 312, Sean Burning that case, Right. Yeah. So I mean, those are the guys that are really going to be some expertise, and when they get requests, they say no to a lot because we can't get crews for them, right? Because their reserves are volunteer, and they're like, go F off,
And we're looking for other avenues. We don't want just Ben to be the only avenue we have for training because
Right
now the other pieces that have those, right? They're mobility liaison officers. There's 21 of them in the CRW, and that's who we're starting to make connections with. And I even told you earlier that they're open to whatever airframe as long as they have the MHE, right? The equipment to handle that aircraft. So talking to one of the AMLOs down in Southern California, down in Miramar, he's in control of Miramar, Riverside, and Camp Pendleton. Just asking for you guys, you know what I mean? Because I'm like, hey, what airframes can you support or whatever? And they're like, if KC-10s are looking to do a quick ground trainer where they come, they offload, onload and stuff, that gives us training. We're down to do that in Riverside because we can handle it because we got a 60K, not a big deal. We can coordinate that. For us, for the fives, pretty much almost can go anywhere as long as the runway's long enough and stuff. So, and the airfield's big enough for us. But that's the type of stuff that we're starting to also coordinate is finding more relationships with these AMLOs to work those ground trainers. And now this is another avenue, we can start coordinating with the reserves and the active duty. We're like, hey, they didn't want to bring it up. And I'm definitely going to talk to you about that. Still one in October for that one to maybe take all the fighter equipment down to Jacksonville. So stuff like that. And this is, oh, sorry, go ahead, sir.
Where the relationships are built. What you're talking about right now is establishing relationships with other entities to provide training. And they do a conference with the Coast Guard, with the Air Force Academy liaison, with the Army, with fire departments all over the country that want to just with fire trucks. In exchange for them fire trucks, they get to show them how to pull fire handle on the airplane. And so the opportunities exist, and that is if the avenue to build relationships is out there, it's that one. If you go to the allocation process, it's probably a Zoom meeting now, which
Yeah, they didn't have one this.
What is the
So it is run by Afric Assets. So there's some of that, like they want Afric Assets to do Afric stuff first, just like obviously your tactical contingency stuff. It's so they're not going to shoot you for.
RAS would be different, like not moving Afric stuff, but that relationship aspect, that's what we're talking about now, is building relationships with Coast Guard.
Yeah.
With Coast Guard down in
Okay.
We used to move a bunch of Navy boats. There's avenues to do that. It's a pain in the butt funding wise and stuff. It was like 10 years ago more when they reserves like the OST, the special missions shop that OST ran. All the OSTs funneled through them, and I think everybody got so busy that it kind of just broke down since then. So I think I'm applauding you for everything you've done, and like they're getting it back going again because also the Denton cargo is huge because that's been the major problem that had to go through Charleston. So getting it over here is like that could open up a lot of stuff to get it. So
the only question I have for that one, sir, is the flexibility though. Like if
say, I talked to this Coast Guard, because that's the flexibility we're having right now, is that if for some reason we cannot take it,
Yeah.
we're not being dinged or like, you know what I mean? So if I do have
No,
like,
it's load training. That's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
okay,
Starting to
all right.
really be looking for training opportunities, and the training opportunity would be to fly and load the Zodiac boats.
okay,
And it, I mean, what better opportunity for your load masters and boom operators to go down and just load stuff and offload it? And the great part about that is 99% of the time, you don't need, the front end doesn't even need to be there. The loads can go out and do their thing, and square all of their training items away, and the pilots get to pick off. Just saying, that's an option.
yeah. No, absolutely. Let's go. And again, once again, that's why we're here, right? That's information I need to know, and I'm gonna take that and run, and I'll probably get with you, and I'm also gonna definitely get with you, sir. The better the better it is for everybody at the end of the day, right? Sorry, sir, go ahead.
I'm trying to load for the KC10. And then this question, it's going to be very loaded towards Josh, right?
Okay.
And I was very lucky to fly with Major Bentley on that OST that we did on KC10s, right?
Yes, sir.
So KC10 people, we absolutely thrive on OSTs, right? That is the only way that we get cargo outside of the CLT. Like KCC, AMC just will not task a KC10. So now we have all these boom operators that have a cargo qualification that we have to maintain. And the only way that we can maintain that qualification is through OSTs, right? So it's very hurtful to get on an OST, go to Tinker, knowing that we're going to fly to Charleston, and all we get is 7 pallets. I'm about to blow everybody's mind. The KC-10 can carry vehicles, right? Maybe we can't carry your Zodiac boats and fire trucks, but like dumb it down for us. See if we can fit a smaller grade ambulance, right? So what love is the KC-10 getting in this program?
So this is where it opens up. So this program, if we start coordinating with one another, right now the one I was also looking at in October was there's 32 Guatemalan pallets, right? Down in Niagara. So you guys would pick up 16. Because I think that's your max, right? 16 or 24? Oh, 20. My bad. I was like, I'm not KC-10. You guys are. Yeah, we'll talk about that later, right? So 24, right? So you got. So you got 24, right? You got 24 pallets that you guys can pick up in a fellow swoop, right? But on this one, you guys would pick up 16 just due to the fact that supposedly Guatemala can only take 16 at a time. So we were like, all right, we can go pick. Is that good enough training for you to get? You would call me and then you'd be like, hey man, I'm gonna go pick this up, bring it back to Travis. We're gonna play with it for the first week. Second week's gonna be transferred to the C5s, and then we take it all the way to Guatemala, and we'll take it all the way the rest of the way for you guys. So that's where we can start coordinating, because you guys can't go to Guatemala because they don't have the K loader that you guys would need to offload it. Whereas in Honduras, you do. You guys can go to Honduras all day. So that's where we're trying to help you guys out, have the capability of getting those qualifications for cargo for you guys, to give you guys that opportunity, so we can help you guys along the way. So it's an agreement between us, and it's a conversation that I definitely wanted to open up. But that's the type of love that we can give you. And again, they got ambulances and stuff like that, where say there is an ambulance that you guys can't fit, and again, say you have to go to Charleston and go pick it up for us. We're like, all right, cool, bring it over here. But say we need at least 3 or 4 of them, and there are 3 or 4 over there. That opens up maybe 3 or 4 lines to go over there. I don't know how many you can fit in there, but sorry, go ahead, sir.
This is a hero effort to get the Charleston stuff here, because the problem we run into with Benton cargo, one, realize Benton is space A for cargo. So it has to go from AMC port to AMC port. Is not allowed to go. I mean, the C-17s you could work out to go direct and bypass ports, but it's already working. That's why I'll put Charleston. Get the here's great. They want this to go to Honduras. Or maybe the runway's long enough, we really can. Kingston maintenance does not let a Kingston go to Honduras or whatever, right? Like, I mean, they break all the time. That's the real battle with maintenance. They maintain it in here. So I mean, C5 has the same issue too, you know, right? Like,
And it's, I mean, it is what it is. So like the cargo you're going to get is to places that we go and they kind of know. Every once in a while you get a random one-off, but what he's trying to say is, yeah, if we can just bring Niagara does a lot of cargo, a lot of this denton cargo comes out of Niagara. So you go to Niagara, you pick it up, bring it here now, and they can take it. That's going to be, I guess the love you want is you never know ahead of time, too far out, really, the shape of it, size. I mean, sometimes they'll say it's just pallets. Like you get this thing comes out, it'll be like 22 pallets. Like, oh, you kind of wait to find out what it is as it gets closer.
Sir, actually, we have a pretty good relationship with Denton now. We're actually able to get load plans. We're able to get the cargo data in months out. We actually know once they have that. Again, a lot of Denton is relationship based, and so when you have those conversations with the Denton folks, it's a two-man shop. So it's one of the two civilians. When we've had conversations, we just ask them, hey, listen, can you talk to the users and get a load plan? Or they actually have the user listed. I'll show you guys how to find that. But you can talk to the user direct and say, hey, what are we taking? And they'll give us that information. I got that on this last trip to Nicaragua.
I think the other thing too that opens that up for us is that we do a lot of the legwork for them. So we're like, give us all your contacts, we'll handle the rest. You know what I mean? They are involved, but not as involved as the other ones because and then he's going to talk about it a little bit more for how this training actually involves pilots, engineers, and besides just the loading factor. And by the way, not to leave out the C-17s, but we definitely want you guys to partake because I know you guys are busy. My understanding is you guys are always busy. But again, we want to have that relationship with you guys where like, if we can do it for the KC-10s and bring you back here, maybe you guys can have that conversation like, hey, we got this OST, could you guys hook us up? You know what I mean? So again, that's what we want to bring is like, try to help each other out. And it's not just two airframes just helping us out or just the reserves and stuff like that. Go ahead. Sorry.
So for the KC-10, you guys ask for like load plans and stuff. Do they understand like the KC-10 is like KC-10 is like load plan, KC-10 is locked in. So if they have load planners orders there that aren't used to doing KC-10, like that might be why you guys aren't getting like you guys are only getting like 7 pounds here and stuff. Like the way we do is like they're like, hey, you got 20 pallets. We don't really care. There's a copy as big as it wants. The 17 the same way, we can take them. But if you call Denton and say, hey, do you have any pallets for this KC-10? They'd be like, yeah, we got like 10 pounds here. Those pallets are Onyx, those pallets are oversized, those pallets are too heavy. Like that, I think that's the limitation. So if you guys are gonna start working with Denton and Niagara and stuff, you get cargo, you need to make sure that they understand what KC-10 can take. Same with like the vehicles and stuff. Like you guys can take some ambulance and stuff. But they can make sure that it's got to be on the house.
We do. So, I mean, it's as simple as a slave pilot.
Yeah.
Moving in an airplane, then driving in the line. Correct.
So I think that's the big thing. Like other places around the states, you guys are trying to protect these cargo. Just make sure they have.
And again, that.
Just one last piece is too that you got for 10s, you got to realize too, it's difficult because of the FTU being here. So this has to happen typically Friday to Sunday, and now the activity
Or holiday.
Oh yeah, no holidays. Like I mean, yeah, exercise stuff because like the FTU has their rigid weekday schedule. These all come out of the training fence. So when they're not tasked, like all the channel stuff, that's why it was great when they're doing all that. But, so that's really where the first battle starts to even get an aircraft to go do this. That especially right now, there's only 2 training tails. Maintenance is limited case into 2 training tails right now. So nobody's allowed to go anywhere during the week unless Major Thomas over there at maintenance decides to give extra tails because the FTU has to fly 2 turn 1 every day, Monday through Friday, typically, well, Monday through Thursday. So,
But
we have 2 pilots right now.
as you're saying. Everyone, right? So discussion should be had where you guys are going to talk about it, like the value added for a pilot. Right? So if you turn this into a formation of some sort, maybe they could task it to a dedicated one. End game would be to take off with a 2
Right, you take off as a 2-ship like the day or night lineman, and then like on Thursday, pack channels came out of the training fence. That was because TC would not fund a tail for the pack channel, and that just, I mean, who else was around? That was years ago. But that was a training tail, and that's why I took off Thursday,
and then it was gone because it had to be back Sunday so we could start flying again the normal lines Monday through Friday. So I think the tail limitation has been shrunk so much that that's why the tents are getting hurt the most right now. Not necessarily the cargo is some of these places, but there's only one between the 4 squadrons, one tail can go on a weekend, so that's where more of the problems coming from, I think, if you want to learn.
Yeah. So we're not that. No. What's it called? I'm bullheaded, sir. So it's definitely not going to happen. You can ask Major Gunnels and Major Bentley about that. One last question, so we can move on to our next one.
It's not even really a question. It's just informative. Like, we used to do this like all the time, but exactly what I said, all the crew and tail allocation being shrunk, like that's why we're not doing it as much. But I think tag teaming a mission, that might open up a little bit more options,
great idea.
because then it's not requiring a crew gone for 4 days. It's just 1 or 2 days. So that might help. I don't know. That's going to be a maintenance.
No, it is
too,
huge because the last little thing I'll shut up is like, the KC-10 is limited to the few days they can have a tail, where C5s are going to have not any untasked TSC tails starting like September for the most I've just heard recently. So you guys will be busy, but yeah, right. In general, you guys have less tail issues, the C5, C17s, because usually there's untasked TSC tails where there is no KC-10 is pretty rare, and they're not going to let untasked tails go off station. It's like a day local or something.
And just to reiterate, like I said earlier in the presentation, the focus is to give you guys that flexibility, right? To be like, hey, we're just gonna go pick it up, bring it back, and then you guys have it for a week for ground trainers if that's what you guys want. Put it on your heavy, so instead of seeing the same 6 pallets, you guys now have other cargo to put on there. And then what's it called? As long as you guys pre-coordinated with the 5 or the 17s or even on the reserve side counterparts for us to say, hey, dude, can you do this? Then we take it the rest of the way for you guys. You know what I mean? So that will help. So. All right, so what's it called? I appreciate you guys' time, and I'm going to pass it on to Sergeant Paget a little bit more tactics.
All right. So like Sergeant Aguilar was saying, this is going to be largely focused on Denton. So before we get started, I'm going to give you a little bit of a working definition for Denton. Obviously, we talked about it. We've all talked about it a lot. The Denton Humanitarian Assistance Program is a unfunded Air Force program started back in the 80s. It's not a new program. That the idea was to provide humanitarian airlift to foreign countries, but it's not funded. So what it is they found out that obviously most air crews need cargo to move stuff. They've known this for years and years, and they want to have the ability to get unusual cargo, different stuff, but it's not paid for. So non-governmental organizations, nonprofits, things like that can submit their cargo to the Denton program. If it's approved, then it goes into a database. That database sits at the Denton cargo office, waiting for that stuff to get moved. Units will come in, any airlift unit can come in and do that. They'll take that, they'll buy that mission per se using training dollars for the mission. So these are all obviously OST, that's why they're trainers. But we're doing a real world mission. We're going down to places like Central America, Ukraine, all over the world to do these. The purpose behind it is to build some goodwill. It lets people see, hey, an Air Force, they don't care where it's coming from. All they see is a big US government C5 coming in or KC-10 or C-17, and they all clap and applaud because we're providing humanitarian assistance to them. So everybody wins out of this. So I just want to give you a quick working definition of why we're doing these and what's the purpose behind these. You'll also find with these missions, they're a little bit more of a dog and pony show because it's relationship built. These have been going on for 40 years. Some of these are literally multi-generational. There are, between these nonprofits and the embassies and Denton program and all this, it's all been relationships built. So there's a lot more nuance involved in these, which means that yes, you'll be shaking hands a little bit more. You'll be on the news a little bit more, things like that. Not all bad things, but just be prepared for those kind of things. But the other factor is this, there's actually a tactical perspective in this. So another working definition, obviously between training and standing by, their purpose is to get our crew members trained to fight today's war. Tactics job is to get us ready for the next one. So go back to about 2018, slide please. Go back to about 2018, the AMC commander started gave her 2020 vision or her priorities at the time. Some of the ones that were changed and some of the things that they're focusing on, mobility ops in a contested environment, and enhancing mobility partnerships. What does mobility ops in contested environment mean? It means working in contested degraded operations. Now, mission type orders is probably a term you'll hear in a little bit. It's going to be covered at the WEPTAC in just a couple of weeks here, I believe. What it's saying is this, we have to learn how to fight how we used to. At least within the C5 community, we've kind of lost that institutional knowledge of how to plan our own missions on the large.
We normally go to the same places, we do the exact same thing. We're handed a package everywhere we go. We've kind of gotten used to the system. Not a bad thing for efficiency, but if we're going to find a contested degraded environment, we're not going to necessarily have access to, TACC. They will say, hey, move this cargo here to here. You're going to figure out how to do it. We may have largely lost that, so we're trying to build that back now. That's where these OSTs come into play. It's given us the ability to plan an integrated mission sortie. This is the reason they have M52s in the first place, was to give us back this capability. So this is what we've been working on. 2020 map web type, mission type orders, mission management, and contested environments. In other words, getting used to not talking to TACC, getting used to the fact that, hey, we may not have internet access. How are we going to do this mission? What that means is old style phone calls. It means that actually having loadmasters go up and call in ports and saying, hey, what kind of MHE do you have? Because they may not know. We're not going to have that information or just assume that it's just going to work just because TACC planned it. TACC doesn't plan these. So guess what? It's on us. It actually developed a really valuable skill. Tactical goals in this is to increase independent squadron mission planning and execution capabilities. In other words, for us to take a mission cradle to grave, we buy this mission and then we get to plan it. It's our mission. And then executing MB52Ys, the integrated mission sortie beams. It's exactly what this is. This is literally planning an integrated mission sortie. Pilots, loadmasters, and engineers have to get together, decide, can we do this? Versus TACC knows we can do this because they've already done all that legwork. Slide, please. So we started doing this, obviously, utilizing Denton cargo moves, cruiser, and getting trained. These are some of the things, some of the training objectives we've been accomplishing towards this. Again, getting us ready to fight those next war. Executing PPRs and clearances within the pilots themselves. Obviously, none of this being done by TACC. Direct user aircrew, airfield cargo coordinations with pilots and loadmasters. I've been getting calls from students as these go on saying, how do I do this? And I'm literally explaining to them how to look up. It's funny, but it's there. How do I look up a command post? How do I get this information? How do I get a load plan when it's not given to me? So I explained to them, go on Google. It sounds funny as training, but go on Google, go find the command post, call the command post, call DATOC, and then you can get it to them. They'll send it to you. But stuff like that does need to be learned institutionally. By backing this up even into our students now, they're getting this information before they even get qualified. So they're actually getting a gentler approach to this. They're getting it introduced to this from the very beginning, so it's normal to them. Unfamiliar cargo, obviously these are things that not necessarily going to be approved. You don't know what this stuff is. So again, getting used to talking with the user directly. Unfamiliar area ports. We're going to Central America. We're going to places like Nicaragua, Honduras, Guatemala, all these places that don't have regular MHE. Some of these we're using things like maritime forklifts, which is not typically done. It's good to get that training again. They're using the cargo elevators versus regular K loaders. The cargo, MHE that we're just not used to doing. It's giving us back that capability to be flexible with wherever we go, that whatever we see, we can handle. Again, it's very easy to die. All we have to do is just stop doing this. Again, relationship-based. What we're trying to establish here is that we develop these relationships, not just within ourselves, but within these NGOs, within the Denton Cargo Program, within the Denton Cargo Office, within these, even the embassies and folks like that. Those people stay there for years and years. So again, having that person, as you select somebody to do this, have somebody that has the gift of gab. Sometimes kind of inconvenient to have, but that person, if they can establish those relationships, that will sustain these programs. Another part of it too, obviously multiple on and off load student opportunities at Travis here. So as Sergeant Aguilar talked about, we're going to be moving pilots back to here, and they're going to stay here for a month. During that time, they're going to get re-JI to be processed for KC-10s, for C-17s, C-5s, and we're going to load them and offload them all at Travis. Costs us nothing in training dollars. It's literally just doing ground static trainers on real jets. These folks our students are getting a chance to touch cargo, getting a chance to inspect, and all these things about real cargo that's not just the same dummy pallet that they've seen 20 different times. Again, having that unfamiliar thing, and it's right here. Denton Cargo works with us. They will let us have cargo here, non-perishable cargo for a month. And we can sit it here, and so we can load it, offload it. There's a lot of training opportunities that can be done in a month when we don't have to fly or spend any money for it. And then the other part we're doing is leveraging CRW and animal relationships. The Air Mobility Liaison Officers, those of you guys don't know, mobility pilots that go to Army units and things like that to coordinate this kind of thing. The Army does want to train with us. The Coast Guard wants to train with us. You talked about there's been this allocation thing going on for years and years, and the active duty just doesn't know about it. We're just kind of getting into this. We're the new dog in the fight with this. So if we can actually get into this, this is a great way to increase our training. Joint planning, tailored training opportunities with non-Air Force assets. Again, touching cargo we don't normally see. We're going to go load a couple CH-47s 2 or 3 times in this coming weekend. And then after that, they're going to fly to Youngstown, Ohio, pick up 20 pallets and bring them back. That's the first half. And then in about a month after we played with it a little bit, and when Guatemala opens back up, Then we're going to have another mission go and drop that stuff off in Guatemala. That's a lot of crews getting trained off of just one piece of cargo. Tailored training cargo selection, both palletized rolling stock. Because we can call the users direct within Denton. We can get to that information. We can see what it is, and we can see if we want to buy that mission. So we get to sort of shop for the missions that we want. If we need certain training objectives, we can grab that cargo, take it back to Travis for a month, have our crews train on it for a little bit, and then move it for them as a benefit to them. So everybody wins. The bottom line, we're relearning how to plan, execute missions without direct support from TACC. Prepping us to operate in those CDO environments without access to mom and dad holding our hand through this, and under mission type order conditions. It's exactly what the AMC commander has asked us to do. So that's what it is. A couple things. It's not on the slides that I will give you. If you guys want to take a look at these missions, anybody here want to actually see these Denton missions as they come down? You already have access to it. You just don't know it. Write this one down. https://sms.transport.mil. That's a single mobility system. It pulls the same information from G2, but it's accessed, by the way, on a side note, this is a really good, useful tool on the road. It's accessed by commercial. You can access from any commercial laptop, anything that you have at home. This is a cat card reader. Apply for an account, you'll get it. Once that comes up, you can look on one of the first tabs is Denton Humanitarian Airlift. You can see every single, there's generally about 5 pages worth of cargo that's been submitted. Would recommend you guys get an account, take a look, and you can shop for this anytime you want. The other one is calling the Denton Cargo office. If you guys want to possibly engage with them directly or with Sergeant Aguilar, talk to us offline. We'll give you the phone number if you want them to. Mr. Jim Bailey, Ken Huntemeyer, they've been there forever. They really want to have crews that come and engage with them. They want this to happen. This is their entire job in the world, is to establish a relationship so they can get this cargo moved. I think that's actually about all we've got. Any questions?
Just like big picture question on this. Other than like you guys talking about, hey, C5s have this OST going, we're doing this. Has this whole idea been like brought up at AODs with current ops about sharing between the squadrons to do these shared OSTs yet? Like, have deputy group commanders been engaged? Has current ops been engaged on this idea yet? Or is this just like literally first presentation of this idea?
So, basically, what we're doing is we're working these within the squadrons. So, as far as it goes, I think they probably know about this, but they don't really know that we're actually talking within each other because it's a training fence. So, what I got from it was like, as long as it's within the training and squadrons are willing to play ball and stuff, there's really no conversation to be had on there, as long as we have the money and as long as we have the tails and stuff. So actually, long run, I probably would say no.
Okay, so I think that's going to be like honestly the key to making this work. We talk about like tail allocations. I think it's a great idea.
Yes, sir.
It's a really good idea that you came up with to try and help, like, again, selfish KC can help out knowing how working our target. But I think that's the big thing is looping in current ops, like spitballing these ideas up to them to see like, can we get allocated for it? Like, is this a workable idea? All the concerns that were brought up already, tail availability and stuff.
So yeah, we are, and I wish Colonel Trumbull was here. He's or Major Fernandez.
Okay, so that was my question.
Yeah, so they're
working this together.
So yeah, they're definitely working and stuff like that. We're trying to get and again, I'm a little bit out of that fight because I don't got the rank for it, but they're definitely looking to allocate a cut C5 tail just for these missions. That's what they're looking for. That's what they're pushing, and we're basically setting these missions up. And knock on wood, but we're at batting 100 with these OSTs going down and getting them set up. The only one that we had kind of a snag, which wasn't our fault, was there was a volcanic ash type of deal going on. But even then, we accomplished it and finished it up. So we had an OST set up for April, and we just pushed that to May, and we finished the mission because we brought the cargo back to Travis and had it sit here and stuff. And again, students got to see the cargo, got to play with it, stuff like that. So it was still what's it called, fruitful for them. But yeah, we are having that conversation, but it's strictly C5s though that they're having that conversation, and we're willing to share that information. Oh, question. Sorry. Good, thank you.
So we have this theory of we're going to have this cargo sitting here for a while that we can play with, right? Who is going to be my guy to call? I got a lot of booms that would love to do static loads and stuff. It's just like, do I call OST? Yeah, he's my boom guy, so he already knows who to talk to.
Yeah, so for us, it's
Sweet.
Lee and Matt.
And they already know who to.
And then again, when we have these crosstalks, as we have these crosstalks, this is a great time to share information. You know, we can share contact information and just make a phone call. Hey, listen, we got this coming in. Do you guys want to play? It can be just that simple, and let it establish from there. What were you saying?
Nope.
Oh. So that being said, call us. I mean, call Tactic Shop at C5s. Call Eric. He'd be a really great resource for that as well. Sorry, now you are. And again, we want you guys to play with this. This is something we can start. The 60th can start getting after these Denton missions. They're great. They look great for the squadrons. I mean, you know, for public relations purposes, they look great for the NGOs because they're getting their stuff moved. They're great for us for our training. With that kind of flexibility in training, getting so many crews to touch cargo that's unique and different, that's a lot of training opportunities, and we can start closing that delta between untrained folks and getting our guys qualified and seeing those kind of cargoes.
As this conversation, like you spoke of, right, to DOs and commanders, what are you guys using? Well, for you, it's very easy. What do you have to share with us to build a talking paper? Does this stuff that you moved already live in a shared drive somewhere in a zip file, or can we access that so we have this through?
We're still new and growing with it, and so right now we have some folks working on actually making it formalized. We're going to have an AA process. We are still building the AAR process for these. We're still building. I would think that you can deliver. We can probably talk to you and give you the talking points if you want to write it up. We'd be happy to, and then give it to us afterwards to save us some time and effort. But right now we are establishing. We have a database that we're building to catch these last missions, to get all the lessons learned, to get the cargo, to get the justification for all this. So we're crunching those numbers. Denton is working with us to get us that information, and we're just kind of running into some tactical pauses, having some of our folks going on the road, and they're going to be working on that when they get home.
And just to attack, we do got information for you. Like I know training is holding how much each guy is getting signed off on each mission. So they got that information across the board. We got, what can I say? We got cargo that we've been airlifting and stuff. We're compiling that information also. And then just recently, like he was talking about, we have had after action reports, which we want to kind of streamline a little bit more and focus on those after action reports. But we started that. I want to say Captain Hinojosa was the first one to start that, so we can start seeing what we're learning from them, what we can get better at, and what we can go after that we can fix. And that's when did you start that, sir?
November 1st of January.
But at the same time, that's what we're doing. We're trying to compile the information, but everything so far that we've been looking at and we've been doing, and I guess in my personal opinion, is I feel like this is something that I've been on the ground working with, but it's been working for the 5 steps. And we just want to, again, share it with you guys and try to benefit everybody in the long run.
You have like a 90 days. So 90 days out, number of calls to identify that cargo. 60 days out, this is what you should have done. 30 days out, you should do this, this, and this. And by 14 days out, you should have everything planned. So y'all would like that checklist that has contacts, phone numbers, so on and so forth, to help y'all establish the process for yourselves, see what works for you. Especially whenever we come to you guys, hey, we have cargo that we're going to bring to Travis that we can't get elsewhere. Now you guys can go through this checklist, start maybe by that 60-day point, identify the crews, identify what you're going to do in terms of getting those dips figured out and whatnot.
And we have passed it out to some of you guys. I think POC that you guys were talking about, I have sat with them. I had that conversation. I gave them everything that we currently have for as a process and stuff. So they do have that. And again, that process may work for us. Maybe you tailor it to what best works for you, you know, and what you guys can cut or input. So that's basically it.
Another thing to focus on is like quantitative versus qualitative piece of this, right? Because it is an OST, you're not bumped up against a sequence of events. So just backing it on and putting it off, right? I mean, that's something else that you can talk to when selling it to leadership. Is just like, this is good for just a comfortability factor of new people. You're right? You're not like, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. It's like this dedicated trainer is for that versus like cutting the mission.
We work with them. Sorry, guys. I just would say careful what you ask for. So from a boom standpoint, you
on the jet, or do you want that experience of going off station and doing it somewhere else? Because most of the Battery Boom Reserve are talking, they're like, oh, doing a check ride to cargo load train, we already have that. That's not the same. So if we're just doing static load at Travis, and now that's justification to say, oh, well, you don't need to go on OST off station, you just go your cargo here. Is that what you want? I mean, so that's the only downside. I know you guys don't have a static load trainer here, right?
So the only thing that I would say, and I'm spitballing here again, well, what I was thinking was, you guys need to, I don't know the technical term, what's it called? You guys need to do your air refueling, right? With other jets. So that was the other thing too that we're having in our conversation is having you guys, and I think Senior touched on it, is a formation, right? So what's it called? You guys come and you guys refuel us up, say just going down to San Diego or Miramar, Camp Pendleton, or Riverside, and then you guys go down there, and we already worked it with the AMLOs. We're like, okay, you fuel this up, you guys land with us, you guys do your little ground trainers up and download, and then you guys go back home and stuff. Maybe, I don't know, again, I don't know what the specifics is for that, but at least now you guys got some boom training, you got some on and off load, and then you can go back home and we can just sit there and do our on and off loading. So there's ideas, and we can always talk about that and get a little bit more in depth. But if we're willing to work through it, and I feel like this is why I wanted to have this conversation, is that we got very, very smart people in here. We got a lot of experienced instructors. I mean, I want to say we are the heart of squadrons, because without us, there'd be no other aircrew, right? So I think we can get together and try to figure something out.
I will say some lessons learned from this too is that make sure that you are facilitating these conversations with your aircrews. So the aircrews aren't just handed this, hey, listen, go fly this mission. You have to talk to them. You have to actually engage with the aircrews to say, hey, listen, this is our intent. And you do have to explain Denton a little bit. And again, kind of the nuance of you're going to have some dog and pony in this. That's kind of paying our way through this. If you want to call it, that's our payment. We got to do some dog and pony, because that is how people see this. That is how, and when it gets seen, it gets grown. Talking to the Denton folks, they need to have that. They need to have those elements of goodwill. There's no money in this, so they got to build up some funds somehow, and that's their way of doing it. So expect to have public affairs involved. Expect to be, glad handing the embassy folks. Expect to be doing, we'll see it up there, taking a photo. It's you can call it a necessary evil, call it something neat that we get to do, whatever it is. But it is important to let the aircraft commanders know, let the primary load masters know. This is to be expected, and they need to. As an expectation in the mission. Between the Guard for 20, 30, 40 years, some of these folks, they've been working at, so relationship means a lot to these. Same with these central. It's a very old program that's want to be ingratiated into that and continue using this in the best kind of ways, and those missions don't just go away from us. We really need to work on those relationships.
Where we need to get a tailback. So, like he was saying, we can depending on what it is, I can sit with the 10, C-17, whatever training y'all are looking for. We go get it, bring it here, and then y'all utilize it for training, and then we can take it wherever it's going, or someone else can take it wherever it's going. So this is something that
this is because like a 3-day OST is not, 4 days not doable anymore because it cuts the training tail. 2 days good, so.
That's the maintenance is going to give us tails. So, and the crews, the DOs are going to fight that you can't. I need my crews for this. You're going to have all that ready. Yeah, right. Yeah, they'll have us to fly. But
that would be another factor in this too. The relationship base is also. Start seeing their crews are doing these humanitarian, and then it makes the group highlight. So all of a sudden, when we're doing these, we're moving all this humanitarian cargo, and it's making the Air Force look great and all that. All of a sudden, TACC. So
this isn't new to us. Like we used to do it like all the time, but now we don't because we don't have crews or tails.
Well, yeah, don't downplay it though, because that. Yeah, now it's war, but you need the need, like the user, which you guys are doing some great work to get that user more fluid. Then each MWS has to work their own crews. Now the last piece is because COVID, crew chiefs are with case Tinleys. I don't know about crew details yet, but that's if chief RDAP is greatly reduced, where they're not going to send an OST out because they need to reduce, because they have the same, just like you crew pilot, they have the same thing working over there. So, but this great to show that there's plenty of need. If you
So you guys now have the demand signal. I mean, you guys can see this now. And again, if you want to get into those conversations, we can talk. The requirements list comes out, list that goes out, and we can probably talk to them and get you guys connected into that. Again, try to limit it so it's not a huge email list. So maybe one per squadron, 1 or 2 per squadron at the most. Just want to have so that you can see that. SMS, go to the humanitarian airlift tab, and look at what's out there. And you can see which ones have been bought already because they put a mission number attached to it. And want to dig a little deeper, call the nonprofit because they're the high point of contact. Say, hey, I'm looking at, give me some information on this, and they will. All right. Any other questions? All right. Yes. Send it to you.
Oh yeah, well,
You got it.
Just give me your information, and I will make sure that I didn't. Oh yeah. Oh, you know what? Give me back to that. So we'll do that, sir. Next will be Tech Sergeant Izzy. He is our AE. Yeah, no problem. He's our AE guy. He's going to just talk about what they're doing and stuff, and just basically introducing the AE portion of the 60th.
So, Tech Sergeant Izzy once again. A little bit about us as AE coming here. So, we were the 43rd Paramedical Evacuation Squadron at Pope. That got shut down on June 9th, and we activated as the 60th Paramedical Evacuation Squadron. So, next slide. So this is what we do. For all three, but we move regulated patients and we move unregulated patients. So our regulated patients are the ones, let's say in IUD, that have been registered in our patient movement system. Cool. That's the majority of what we do. When we go to Afghanistan, and we have like soft forces on the ground. You guys here in like an hour, 2 hours, whatever, come pick these guys up from the battlefield. So usually we'll take your C-130s out there and go execute that mission. So just depends on what the flavor of the week is and what patients we're going to see. So cool. So AECMs, Air Medical Evacuation Crew members are qualified universally on the C-130, the C-17, and the KC-135, and soon to be the 46. About half of our members in the squadron right now are 46 qualified. So at any point, AMC can task us to go on those, and we should know how to do the mission on that aircraft. Our opportune aircraft systems right now are C-5 and KC-10. So right now, we can't do our aeromedical readiness missions on it. In case that we have a mission, and that's the only one, your AE crew assigned to that aircraft should be able to go execute the mission on that. We haven't done a whole lot of those. I've got like 1.4 hours on the C-5, and I'm a high time guy on the aircraft for AE. So we need to train more. And that shop long cap bridge grill. Just a rundown of how many litter patients we can carry on these aircraft. KC-10. So I looked at your post and sorry. Cool. That's more than the 135. So that's exciting. 135 can do 8. But yeah, so we can be utilized to carry a lot of patients, alert patients, and even more ambulatory patients, depending on what the situation is, with whether it be combat or whatever. Okay. Crew comes out to the aircraft. This is what we need from you guys. So just let us know if there's any maintenance issues that might affect AE. For example, a C-17, if there's anything wrong with the integral oxygen system on the aircraft. Whether we can only use one of the 75-liter tanks versus both of them, stuff like that. Just let us know if there's any issues that might get in the way of what we do. Help positioning MAG. We can bring trucks up to the aircraft or whatever, but like forklifts, K-loaders, all those kinds of MAG that sometimes we might need to move patients off of an airplane. We can't do that. We're not certified. So loads and booms are going to have to help us out with that. And then understanding configurations and weight and balance requirements. Your AE crews should be doing all the configuration for the aircraft. We might ask you for a favor here and there. just helps out the airplane, but we're pretty independent when it comes to that stuff. And we are trained at our FTU to tell you weight and balance, or the weights of our equipment to help you with your weight and balance issues. So if you have any questions about the weights of the equipment that we have, we'll hold the reference for you and call it good. Questions about AE? That was the quick and dirty. I plan on doing some more in-depth stuff as we keep going with these crosstalks, but yes, sir. Maybe. So they're kind of planning it right now with our leave schedule. They're setting it up for an alert template. That way we can go do alert stuff, which would be cool. But as of right now, I haven't heard anything about that. So,
When are you guys, I know we talked about it, but like for everybody else, when do you think, as far as for the C5, when do you guys think that we can start getting together and at least do some ground training or maybe get that process going?
yeah, so in the next couple months, we've got the KC-46 closing out for our qualification on that for one of our university qualified aircraft, and then we'll start working on C5. That's priority number one for me, working up at OST with Sergeant Aguilar. So we'll get the C5. Should be within the next couple of months doing ground trainings, getting everybody qualified. All we have to do to qualify on that aircraft is a 20 question open book test and a walk around the airplane. And that's really it. We'd like to do more because that's really not a good enough experience to let you know how to operate on that airplane. So once we walk and run on that, we'll eventually get to OSTs. Speaking about this Denton cargo, and eventually we'll do the same thing with the KC-10s. Denton cargo missions, we'd like to hop on those too and just, you know, play simulated patient and kind of LARP on the aircraft and do our thing while you guys are actually moving cargo for these humanitarian missions. So we'd love to hop on that, but that'll be later in the future.
You guys do, I know the Reserve AE does allocations. They'll book it out, you know, quarterly, yearly, like, hey, we're going to go 3-day weekend to go, like, Beal's coming next week to pick up 349th AE, take them to Navy North Islands, and then bring them back. Like, does the 60th do that, or?
Not right now, no. So we're doing more locals than anything as we stand with the squadron. I think next month or the month after, we're turning on our regular patient movement missions. So from Andrews going to San Antonio or going to the West Coast, we're going to turn those on. We've been doing the PACOM runs as well, going from here to Hawaii, Guam, Kadena, and back. But nothing really like that yet.
Those are task missions.
Those are task missions for us.
But you guys you can fly, right?
We can, yep.
So you won't have an allocation, but so just a heads up for everyone in the room, if you are interested in doing one of those off-station trainers, these guys provide an awesome additional resource or justification to be able to do that. So if you want to jump onto a C5, you could absolutely do that if it was room for you. Well, the C5 does boat training somewhere.
So like I was saying, for the C5 and the KC-10 right now, they're opportune aircraft, so we can't do actual training stories on them, but we can do live patient movements on it. It's kind of weird, but just the C-17 for now until we get the C5 and the KC-10 quals.
Just curious for the, eventually with C5, what type of support do you guys typically need from the, we just never flown with AE, so what type of support do you guys need from the crews? Obviously you'd be part of the crew, but what kind of special things do you guys need to execute your mission prior to takeoff, just equipment and things like that we'd have to, what do you need from us?
For the cargo compartment area, not much. As long as the ramp's down, we can load our patients and our gear on there. That's pretty easy for us. If we're just doing the troop compartment upstairs, maybe like the air stairs brought to the aircraft, I think that's how that works, right? We still got to do a lot of investigation on it. AMC's got a training plan. There hasn't been really much effort put into the C5 versus, you know, our university qualified aircraft. So we're still working out the details on that.
Yeah, because I just kind of wondered versus cargo, you know, the availability, we're taking up space in the cargo box and now we can't move stuff, or it's harder to move our stuff around. It sounds like a great idea. We'd love to have it. You kind of need to have the additional training on it.
Yeah, and I think for the OSTs, for the most part, we're going to be utilizing the troop compartment more than the cargo compartment. Any questions for AE?
I was like, I didn't know that you had a job, or AE had a job in OST, so I was working with Sergeant Williams. Does that sound familiar? He's the ops suit for the AES.
Cool. All right, thanks guys, appreciate it.
All right, so just to finish up,
I first like to say I appreciate everybody that showed up. Everybody also on Zoom that logged on. I'm kind of hoping that this is going to start that communication course that we're talking about, the information. Like I said, I saw a couple of you guys already kind of mingling and having these conversations. The other key piece of doing this is also maybe making this a quarterly thing due to the fact that, as you can see, with all this experience and all this cross-talking and stuff, we're bringing up ideas. We're looking solutions and here, like I said, in different forms, but the base problem of it is pretty much almost similar to same to other squadrons, and maybe the other squadron has that solution already, and it might not be the solution that you're completely looking for, but it can get you on the right track. So we're kind of hoping we do this quarterly, kind of bring in, maybe not as long as we had it. This was just the first one to kick off because I wanted to introduce everybody into the fold. But maybe the next one be more specific or tailored, something that is across the community that maybe like for students, you know, generational type of deal where maybe how to communicate with them more. What inspires them to actually become a aircrew member or just in general, like, and that's just sorry, go ahead, sir.
We can almost think of like staff councils prior to having a meeting, just submit like any hot topics that we want to focus on. That way we're not just coming up with something and then talking and people like, that's not relevant. And then we can just tailor specifically those questions. And then if anything else comes up, that'll just be our lead in.
Sir. And then one more thing, we are recording. So not only will you guys have the slides so you guys run through it, but if for some reason some of your guys who wasn't here to be able to see it and stuff, we'll have it underneath that also. So the recording will be in there so your guys can take a look at it and you guys can speed through whatever you don't want to see and then slow down on or rewind what you want to look at. Sorry, go ahead, sir. Oh, you're good? Oh, all right. So other than that, that was it. I appreciate you guys showing up, and you guys have a good day.